closer, getting closer, getting closer.
Not that close.
Right. Where is he? Where's the lad who was videoing it earlier? And okay, Muppet, right, let's get it on. Let's interview Donut. Let's see it. This is the good bit. This is the one that went viral on YouTube. This bit. Sit down. Right, okay.
I'm not going to try this.
You're not going to try it this time, no.
Give it up.
Yeah, it's available on YouTube anyway, so
We've got someone able.
I shouldn't worry. Oh, you're doing it for him, mate.
I'm his sister.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Single, I see. Just put that out there. I live in a castle in central London with parking.
No,
The beard's optional. Okay. Right, glad you could make it. Goes in. Right, as we came through, someone asked me why I was called a beef eater. Please don't do that. We don't know. We think we would. It's a nickname we've had for centuries. We don't know its origins. There are one or two popular theories. It is true that we were paid an allowance of beef eater. Very literal and very rude. Never, never, never refer to anybody by their diet, all right? It's just wrong. And it doesn't give you the whole story. We weren't just given an allowance of beef. We were given an allowance of goose, an allowance of pork, an allowance of mutton, an allowance of venison. Do you know what venison is, Sweet Pea? Bambi. That's what venison is. We ate Bambi, and we ate Bambi's mum as well. We were also given an allowance of beer. No one calls us beer drinkers, but believe me, that would be much more accurate. Three of my colleagues at the moment are vegetarians, so there you go. There's another theory that it is a corruption of an Anglo-Norman word, buffetier. Buffetier, beefeater. The two are homophonic, they sound the same. The word's no longer in use, but it does mean servant. And a lot of my colleagues get upset about this. They say, we're not servants, we're soldiers. And in a way, they're right. Since the year 1826, Yeoman warders, beefeaters of the Tower, had to have military service. The Duke of Wellington insisted that no one but deserving, gallant, meritorious former sergeants of the army could be admitted to the body of Yeoman warders. And it's true to this day. Slightly. Of the 37 of us, most of us come from the army. Yay! 22 years minimum service. But we do have 5 from the Royal Air Force. No one talks to them. They don't even talk to each other. They really are lonely people. We've got 3 from the Royal Marines and there's 1 from the Royal Navy. You can spot that bunch. They're usually holding hands and skipping. And many of my colleagues are married. Some of them are happy. The others have children. And we all live here. See, I don't make this up. We do. Just a thought. Okay. So you will see signs saying private, do not enter. You will see chains up, and you will see bars across certain places. And if you have to limber under those bars, or take down those chains, or skip round those signs, you are trespassing. Do you understand?
Yes.
As the Tower of London remains a royal palace, we have armed guards. If you trespass, you will be shot. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. By all means, allow your children to explore. There are some lessons that should be learned early on. Now, so don't ask why we're called beefeaters. We really don't know. Got it?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I know your parents tell you you're special, but you're not. Just keep quiet. No one wants to hear what you have to say. Right. What we came here to talk about was this. This is the world infamous Traitors Gate. That's sound effects. You don't pay extra for that. Traitors Gate is not its original name. Originally, this was known as the Watergate. Boats and barges would come in here and they would offload stores and provisions. And for that reason, it quickly became known as the Traders' Gate, like the tradesman's entrance, yeah? Now, in the 16th century, there was something of a human traffic, largely one way. And a lot of these people were prisoners, many accused of treason, and the watermen slid the name to Traitors' Gate. We have had some very famous traitors come through here. You may well have heard of Queen Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife, and Queen Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife. Oh, look at you getting excited. Yeah, Tudors. I bet you've got the DVD box set, haven't you? Bane of my life, that series. Okay, well, we're going to be talking more about those two floozies later when I show you where they were killed and where they lie to this day. So Thomas More, you might have heard of him. He was the Lord Chancellor of England and a great personal friend of King Henry VIII. But the Lord Chancellor's office has a nickname. It is known as the King's Conscience, and it is the job of a Lord Chancellor to tell the King or Queen if they're acting against the public interest. Now, when Henry VIII declared he wanted to be head of the church in England, as well as the head of state, Thomas More did his job. He advised him. Don't do that, he said. Too much power in one man can only end in tyranny. Not to prove the point or anything, Henry VIII imprisoned him in the bell tower over there for 15 months, just for saying that. But in July of 1535, he was let go to Tower Hill, where thousands gathered to hear his last words. These were simple, yet profound. I die the king's true servant, he said, but I shall always be God's servant first. I would ask you to pray for your king, the king that had signed his death warrant. Thomas More knelt down, rested his neck on a block of oak. The executioner brought down an axe, and his head was removed with one stroke. It was immediately impaled on a soldier's pike and paraded through the streets of London. Left on London Bridge as a warning to other traitors. It would also have served as an early form of bird feeder, environmentally friendly. However, his sister had the head stolen, and it was taken to their home in Chelsea, which is now a Jesuit college, and many Jesuits believe the head is still on the grounds. There is a church in Canterbury called St Dunstan's. They claim they've got the head. Now, I'm not an expert on Thomas More, but I'm fairly certain he only had one head. I was a medic in the army. I know this stuff. I don't know where the head is, but his headless corpse was brought back inside the fortress for burial in the chapel, where we shall end our tour. On a happier note, behind you, we have the Bloody Tower. Again, this is not its original name. Originally, this was known as the Garden Tower, but we changed it for marketing purposes. Now, in 1483, this was home to the King of England, Edward V. Now, why would a king live in a gatehouse? Well, Edward V was 12, and he might not have had much of a choice. His younger brother, Richard, the Duke of York, was just 9, and they both lived there with the soldiers under the protection of their uncle Richard, the Duke of Gloucester. And they needed that protection because there was a war on. These boys were targets, many people were out to kill them, and Gloucester knew it. He took his protection duties so seriously, he had Parliament declare his nephews to be bastards. They couldn't keep the crown, and he took it. He became King Richard III, and he was now the target. His nephews continued to play safely in the grounds long after his coronation, and that's all documented fact. But it is also a fact that these boys disappeared. There were rumours at the time that they were taken away to Ireland for their own protection. But Shakespeare tells us that one night in 1483, they fell asleep up there and never woke up, and that during that night they were smothered to death with their own pillows. Stabbed with a dagger for good measure. Now I'd like you children, especially you young children, to think about that at bedtime. Now, your mums and dads will tell you it was a long time ago, and that's true. But they may also tell you that there are no more bad men. Kids, that's a lie. There are always bad men, very, very bad men, and sometimes they're under your beds or in your wardrobes, waiting for you to go to sleep, and that's when they'll get you. Sweet dreams, kids. Their disappearance was a mystery for nearly 200 years. In 1674, workmen on the south... Not available for childminding, no. Yeah, workmen on the south side of the White Tower removed a stone stairway and they discovered the remains of 2 small people. Now, experts at the time declared these to be the bones of the princes, and Charles II commanded they should be laid to rest at Westminster Abbey in Innocents' Corner that he had named in their honour. Who killed them? I don't know. Frankly, I don't care. What bothers me is that nearly everybody blamed Richard III, but they haven't got a shred of evidence. They quote Shakespeare. Well, for your information, or FYI, if you're part of the Facebook generation, Shakespeare was not a detective. He was a playwright writing over 100 years after the event to amuse and impress Elizabeth I, and she was a Tudor. Her grandfather, Henry Tudor, defeated Richard at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, took the crown from Richard's dead head, and with no real claim to the throne, declared himself king. Could not have done that if these lads had been alive, and at the time no one even thought they were dead. But maybe he did. Maybe he knew. It is entirely possible that Henry Tudor had those boys murdered. But Shakespeare wasn't going to write that. Not if he wanted to keep his head. And that's a really important lesson. History is not the past. History is never what it was. It's always what it is. History is the story of the past, writ large and embellished by the people who win. This explains why French history books are quite slim, while volumes of British history cover shelves all over the world. History, vive la France, history is also a dynamic. It will not stay in the past. It has this habit of bubbling up centuries later. Just a few years ago, I was telling people here that Richard III was chopped up on the battlefield of Bosworth and thrown into the River Soar because that was the local legend. Thousands believed it. It was in the history books. It was history. It was wrong. Richard III has spent most of the last 600 years under the social services car park in Leicester.